Edie, you're up. Hello everyone, my name is Edie. I'm just going to read from this week's Substack from me today, and it's a similar theme. Can you hear me? Am I close enough? Sorry, I don't hear it otherwise.
We can hear, but you might need it further up.
I've got a bit of hat
I
hair,
always
so I've
forget.
got to watch it. On the 18th of November, MP Di Farmer proudly posted on Facebook that she had been part of a protest outside Parliament House in Queensland and was a signatory to a petition against the banning of puberty blockers for gender non-conforming children in Queensland. Farmer was joined by other MPs Grace, Mark Bailey and my own local member Joe Kelly to vehemently insist that we should trust psychiatrists to dissex children. The lobby groups involved in the protests to demand the government reinstate puberty blockers for gender medicine included Equality Australia, Transcend, Trans Justice Project, the LGBTI Legal Service. All these groups are government funded. This is a government push to insist that children are given these puberty stopping medications. In the UK, comprehensive studies have demonstrated that puberty blockers are not only ineffective and dangerous, they target the most vulnerable of children, the majority of whom will later identify as same-sex attracted. The CATH review showed that almost all children who are placed on puberty blockers for gender incongruence go on to a lifetime of cross-sex hormones. This creates a group of people who have had no puberty at all. Dr. Marcy Bowers of WPATH admitted in leaked messages that he is unaware of any individual claiming ability to orgasm when they were blocked at 10 or 2. This is not just about an orgasm, but denying a person the experience of a long-term, mutually enjoyable, intimate sexual relationship. This is an integral part of the human experience. No child can consent to the removal of something they have no way to imagine the value of. Dr. Stephen Stathis, boo.
Yeah, boo.
Top gender psychiatrist with Queensland Health, has admitted to a room of his peers that the evidence of the benefits of puberty blockers to young people in gender medicine is weak, while the evidence of long-term harms including bone density issues, permanent infertility and sexual dysfunction are increasingly evident. Apparently these are not reasons not to do it. Despite all this evidence, the NHS are about to embark on human trials of puberty blockers for what are called trans children. So why are the parliamentary left and professional activists so reluctant to give up the desexing of children when it is so obviously wrong? I'd love to spin a BuzzFeed vibe and give you 5 reasons, but I only have one reason. The only reason our government-paid progressives want to block the puberty of gender non-conforming children is to maintain the lucrative trans myth. The trans myth is the idea that everyone has a body sex and a soul sex, and of these two sexes, the soul sex is the true sex and the true self. According to the myth, a very small percentage of special people have an incongruence between body sex, and the soul sex, and we call these people trans. According to the myth, if the sex of the soul or the self is denied its expression and its affirmation, the host body can literally die. If there's an innate condition called trans, then it stands to reason some of the trans people are children. The paediatric science of trans then posits that special doctors can test to find the child with the trans soul, partly by finding out what stereotypes the child is attracted to. Once the diagnosis of the trans child is conducted, so the science goes, a child will have the best chance of being their true sex soul self by stopping the toxic and deadly body sex development. The trans myth then goes on to insist that brutal, ineffective surgeries with very poor results like phalloplasty should not only be available but paid for by the taxpayer. In addition, all of society must be compelled to pretend they don't see the body sex with their own eyes, and everyone must forget the dangers of sex completely, including male pattern criminal and sexual behaviour towards women and children. The obvious problem is that this is all complete nonsense. It's useful nonsense to government because it has grown an industry of consultants that provide government with cultural and political control mechanisms. The reality for the regular person is that harm has been caused by the trans myth, not just to medical science but to society, to women's rights, to gay rights, to parental rights and to children's rights to reaching adulthood intact. Without the trans myth, the entire medical and political industry of trans falls into the sea, and the draconian legislation that is tied to the trans myth will just be a sticky dream between a politicians' sheets. The trans myth became institutionalised in 2013 with the invention of gender dysphoria. The diagnosis of gender dysphoria in the DSM-5 invented the dual-sex person with the decree that the distress people feel about gender stereotypes is a type of innate sexual self, and the source of distress is a trans person's rejection from society, so discrimination. The big problem in selling the trans myth is that almost no trans-identifying men pass. They almost all look like men in dresses, and people have eyes. Puberty blockers provide the trans medical and political industry with the closest simulation of a female person that a male can achieve, especially when puberty is blocked before tenor stage 2. This creates a physical illusion that sex is not real as we think. Individuals like Georgie Stone, Jazz Jennings and Avery Jackson are the patron saints of the trans myth. We saw them as boy children, and because they have had no male puberty, they are destined to grow up to look exactly like women. But in a long experiment, this is not really what has happened. The smoke and mirrors of the trans myth will show us that the castrated, straight hip trans girl on the catwalk. But we mustn't look too closely at the life of the TV reality star Jazz Jennings. The reality show I Am Jazz reveals that Jennings, who identified as trans by his mother as a toddler, still struggles to access the milestones regular adults would achieve, like financial independence, emotional stability, and the natural romantic engagements of a young person. In one episode, Jazz's mother was seen suggesting that Jazz was asexual. Asexuality has become a cover identity for the desexed person. Another puberty blocked male who has turned into an inconvenient adult is Avery Jackson. Avery Jackson is a young boy with pink hair who graced the cover of National Geographic as a 9-year-old in January 2017 with the dramatic headline, Gender Revolution. Avery was placed at the forefront of the invention of the transgender child. Debbie Jackson, Avery's mother, is a preacher of the dual-sex trans soul myth. She posted in 2020 that God knows us before we're in the womb. He knows our spirit. That's not the same as our physical temporal body. Debbie began to socially transition Avery when he was 4, and he became a typical example of the child placed on trans pathways shortly after infancy and going into adulthood without puberty. Debbie posted on X in 2020 in reply to a J.K. Rowling tweet that her daughter is female, and she absolutely would feel like you hated her if you denied that reality. But by 2022, Avery was course correcting and identifying as non-binary. It turns out Avery wasn't a girl inside after all. Debbie now refers to her son by plural pronouns, declaring him to be valid and happy. If the trans myth is not true, which it is not because it's ridiculous, what we have done to children in its service is a scandal. Those who have been complicit, those who have profited, can never look and see what they have done. There is only one way to break the trans myth on which the house of cards of gender identity rests. We have to tell the truth. We must tell the truth about sex always and everywhere. Those of us who have committed to never use wrong sex pronouns, to see a man and say a man, to not accept our life any lies about human sex categories, suffer all kinds of abuse and vilification. But the more of us who commit to this path, the sooner this will end, and we can start to heal our society from one of the most dangerous lies ever told by government.